This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network. Welcome to the Political Review. My name is Quincy Parker. I am your host for this wonderful conversation on this Sunday evening, the 27th of March, year of our Lord, 2022. Can you believe it's already March 27th? Oh my God. Today, we are approaching our playground, which is the national politics of the day, by having a conversation that is not directly political, but has what I believe is perhaps one of the most profound influences and impacts on the political agenda that is possible. And in terms of setting up the context for our conversation today, the OECD put out a report in December of 2021 that talked about the impact of COVID-19 and the impact of the crisis on labor markets across the OECD. And in April 2020, following the onset of the crisis, the OECD unemployment rate saw an unprecedented 3 percentage point increase to reach 8.8%, which was the highest unemployment rate seen in the OECD in a decade. In just that 1 month, the entirety of the progress made since the beginning of the financial crisis was erased. And a large part of that surge in unemployment was driven by substantial increases in countries like the United States and Canada, where large numbers of temporary layoffs inflated unemployment figures as businesses closed and sent their workers home to shelter from the virus. In the US alone, in just 1 month, the number of people in unemployment swelled by nearly 16 million to reach over 23 million in April 2020. Numbers then tumbled, more than halving in the following 6 months as economic activity recovered and businesses recalled their workers. And this is the important part. Certain groups, though, including those in low-paid occupations, the low-educated, and the young, have persistently been in the eye of the storm. These groups not only suffered the most substantial reduction in hours worked, but are more likely to have experienced the impact through joblessness. So that's the OECD side of things. The United Nations International Labor Organization put out a World Employment and Social Outlook Trends Study 2022. They put it out at the end of January, and they downgraded the 2022 labor market recovery forecast, projecting a continued major deficit in the number of working hours compared to the pre-pandemic era. ILO Director Guy Ryder said that 2 years into the crisis, and this is a direct quote, the outlook remains fragile and the path to recovery is slow and uncertain. The World Employment and Social Outlook report has a current forecast that remains about 2% below the number of pre-pandemic hours worked globally. But more importantly, global unemployment is expected to remain above pre-COVID levels until at least 2023. The 2022 level for those without jobs around the world, as counted by the UN, is estimated at 207 million people, compared to 186 million people in 2019. ILO Director General Guy Ryder said that many workers are being required to shift to new types of work. For example, in response to the prolonged slump in international travel and tourism. Of course, that particular slump has affected the Bahamas in an incredibly real, lasting, and potentially damaging way. The WESO Trends report also warned that the overall impact on employment is significantly greater than represented by the raw figures because many people have left the labor force. Now, the participation rate of the 2022 global labor force is projected to remain 1.2 percentage points below that of 2019. And the downgrade reflects the impact of coronavirus variants like Delta and Omicron, as well as the ongoing uncertainty surrounding the pandemic's future course. We're already seeing potentially lasting damage to labor markets. And this is Guy Ryder again, who says that there have been concerning increases in poverty and inequality. The UN report warns of stark differences in the impact that the crisis is having across groups of workers and countries, deepening inequalities within and among nations, while weakening the economic, financial, and social fabric of almost every state, regardless of development status. This next quote is critical for us to hear. The damage is likely to require years to repair, with potential long-term consequences for labor forces, household incomes, and social and possibly political cohesion. While effects are being felt in labor markets globally, the ILO observes a great divergence in recovery patterns, which seems to correlate with the containment of the coronavirus. So when you look at the regional differences, obviously the European and North American regions are showing the most encouraging signs of recovery. But Southeast Asia, Latin America, and of course the Caribbean have the most negative outlook. At the national level, labor market recovery is strongest in high-income countries, while lower middle-income economies are faring the worst. And the disproportionate impact of the crisis on women's employment is expected to last into the coming years. At the same time, and this is something that I think the Bahamas needs to be paying very careful attention to, the Trends report flags that the closing of education and training institutions will have cascading long-term implications for young people, particularly those without internet access. On the local front, the government of the Bahamas implemented a furlough scheme during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that scheme came to an end last month. Through that scheme, was brought into place, and it bought time by ensuring that employers didn't have to pay severance to workers at the end of 90 days from the point at which staff were suspended. Of course, the furlough scheme's expiration didn't lead to a spree of sackings necessarily. With companies back in business, the remaining staff on furlough seem to have been largely welcomed back on board. But I think that is an incredibly optimistic reading of what has gone on. And so against that backdrop, both local and international, I wanted to have a conversation. We are going to have a conversation today with the Director of Labor, himself a former trade unionist, a fellow who's been in business and in the game for a very long time and has great, deep experience Mr. Robert Farquharson. Welcome back to the Political Review.
Pleasant good afternoon, Brother Quincy. Thank you so much. It's good to be here, and pleasant good afternoon to your audience.
Thank you, sir. So I have a couple of questions for you, Brother Farquharson. Before I start with my list of questions, I'm sure you had an opportunity to peruse the editorial in the Tribune that talked about the fact that our economy seems to be on a positive footing, and that there is a chance that our unemployment situation might get a positive bump here in the next little while. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as you indicated during your introduction, many regions of the world have not fared so well in the recovery after COVID-19. Let's not forget in the Bahamas, we had two blows. We had first Hurricane Dorian, and then after Hurricane Dorian, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And since the fourth quarter of 2021, when things began to become more normalized in our labor market, we have seen some improvements in the labor market, and as you indicated, as a result of the cessation of the emergency powers on November the 11th of last year, the government, by doing that, really initiated the process to activate Section 28C of the Employment Act, and that's the furlong period that you spoke about. That came to an end on February the 11th, and obviously by then, employers had to make a decision if to re-engage employees or to make them redundant and give them statutory provisions outlined in the Employment Act. We did see some companies. There are a few companies everybody would know about. The Hilton Hotel. We would know about a restaurant in the mall. I think it's called Outback, and Galleria Cinemas, and a number of companies really was not able to recover from the COVID-19. They basically shut down, and those employees are now on the unemployment line. But we did see a significant amount of companies really favored well, and they began to bring employees back, if not for full week, for on a partial week and partial time. The major hotel properties have all begun the process of re-engaging staff. Some staff were given options if to be re-engaged, and some of them selected not to be engaged. And because they selected not to be re-engaged, the hotel had no choice but to begin the process of employing new people. So we have seen in employment in the tourism and hospitality sector, and that augurs well for our economy. Mm-hmm. But we need to be extremely cautious, because this is now the winter season. Come the summer season, you may see those hotels, when the numbers may drop off. That may result in some additional reduction in work days. But for the most part, I'm very, very pleased. In the Department of Labor, we have seen very little claims for redundancy pay. Very little trade disputes were filed. That for us means that a significant amount of employers tend to bring people back, and there was no need for employees claiming. We are very, very pleased about that. Mm-hmm. I guess it means be cautiously optimistic. And so I encourage those employers who are in a position to bring employees back, we'll be appreciative, and that would mean less strain on the provision of the National Insurance Board for unemployment benefit claims.
You mentioned something that I was trying not to touch during this conversation, which is the state of the state of the National Insurance Fund. That's another show.
Yeah.
But that is a show that we need to have a conversation. We need to have that conversation. So the OECD says that certain groups, particularly those who are in low-paid occupations, people who have low education and the young have been, and the phrase they used was persistently been in the eye of the storm. They're talking about these people suffering substantial reduction in hours worked, more likely to have been, affected, by the joblessness related to both COVID-19 and in our case also Dorian as well. So my first question about that is how have those groups, low paid occupations, low educated, and the young, how have they fared in the Bahamas labor market in the aftermath of COVID-19? And are there specific programs targeted at those groups?
Certainly. Statistics indicate that there are about 235,000 people that make up the Bahamian labor force. And we estimate about 25% of the labor force receives minimum wage, which is $210 a week. So when you look at those numbers, you're talking about a significant amount of people, particularly young people, who are at that stage where the pandemic and the closing of businesses really and truly impacted them. Even before the pandemic, the unemployment rate amongst the young people, who the last check, I think it was 2019, when the second quarter of 2019, the unemployment rate amongst the young people, that's people 17 and 30, was about 31%. So you're talking about a significant amount of young people. And then we have the vulnerable, the women. We have those in the informal economy. And while they are impacted significantly by the COVID-19 pandemic, one of the other things we have not looked at and we have not measured is the underemployed. We have unemployment, we have the underemployed, and those persons who are making the minimum wage, and that still is insufficient to sustain them. And so I agree with the reports outlined in OECD. That's a major problem. And that's one of the things that we in the Department of Labor has been focusing on. And we've developed a number of programs. First and foremost, the Department of Labor has partnered with a non-profit organization out of San Francisco called the Abistad Group. And through a loan from Inter-American Development Bank, the Department of Labor has partnered with that company to provide certification. So we have graduated so far about 100. We have graduated so far about 100 young people who we have trained to become entrepreneurs in the ITC space. That means they are now able to create and sustain employment opportunities using information technology. Let me give you a prime example. One of the persons who graduated with us lives in Eleuthera. They live in Eleuthera. They are now providing services to a restaurant in New Providence by providing support for fishermen in Bimini using IT technology. So the vendor is a restaurant in New Providence who needs conch and fish for the restaurant. The supplier is a fisherman in Bimini, and the person facilitating the transaction over the internet is someone who lives on the island of Eleuthera. And that's was a result of COVID-19. COVID-19 caused us to rethink our model on how we do business. And so that's a wonderful program that's going on now. Mm-hmm. Secondly, the Department of Labor has partnered with the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute, and we are providing certified training for persons throughout the Bahamas online using BTV, and it's free training. NCCER is the National Institute of Research in Construction and Development in the United States. And BTVI and the Department of Labor has held a number of career fairs where we are identifying young people, even as persons in grade 11 and 12, to sign up for this certification. And we start in the construction field because there is now a demand for certified behemoths in the construction industry. So we partnered with the Disney Group, who's constructing the project down in Saudi Lutra. And they expect it to come online in August of this year. And Disney has said to us, if you give us certified behemoths, we will hire them. Not might hire them, we will hire them. So we held a couple of career fairs in Rock Song and Gregory Town on the 22nd and the 24th in February. And we have over 120 young people in Bimini now signed up. And they begun the online certification in the construction industry. And hopefully by June, when they complete it, they'll be employed by Disney. Next, we went to Exuma. We partnered with Exuma. We had a job fair in Exuma on the 18th and 19th of March. And the reason why we went to Exuma because there is a hotel being constructed on Norman's Key, a 6-star hotel in Norman's Key. And the owners of that property said, if you bring us certified behemoths who are certified by NCCER, we will hire them not only on the construction side, but on the operational side of the hotel as well. So we had a wonderful job fair at the Ellen Coakley High School, and we have signed up a significant amount of young people who are going to be certified online, and they go and participate as employees in the construction side of the project. And when that construction phase is finished, they hope to be re-engaged by the same company to work on the operations side. And next thing we have moved on to Grand Bahama. Grand Bahama Shipyard has advised us that they have approved an expansion of that facility, and they need behemoths, trained, certified behemoths to work on the shipyard. People who are pipe fitting, welders, and all different areas of shipbuilding. So this program is also in partnership with them. The Department of Labor is going to be in Grand Bahama in the next couple of weeks. We have to identify an additional 250 people, because if we hire these young people in Grand Bahama, there's no need for us to provide work permits for non-behemoths to come in and perform these jobs. We hope to do the same thing in New Providence and in Abaco with the biggest Bay project. The idea is to provide certification for these young people and give them an opportunity to be employed in the construction field. Then in addition at Quincy, we have also partnered with a number of private sector organizations to provide job fairs. We did it a wonderful with Sandals, when Sandals opened in January, late January of this year. We held so far 2 job fairs in conjunction with Sandals, and as a result of those job fairs, almost 400 behemoths have been hired by the Sandals Group. We partnered with Paradise Games to provide training and job fairs. We have partnered with Islandside Development Company on March 5th in Saudi Lutra, provide employment opportunities there. And just this week past, just yesterday, we partnered with the Nassau Cruise Port. Name of the company is Enter Construction. They were contracted to provide services to construct the cruise port. And we had a wonderful job fair where we saw about 325 people were interviewed. About 64 were women. And they were skilled people who came and were hired yesterday. So that's the approach we have taken so far to find a way to bring job seekers, behemoths who are looking for jobs, with employees who are looking to fill those vacancies. We have a number of other things coming on April the 5th. No, sorry, May the 5th. We're taking it back to the city at the East Street Gospel Chapel. And we're going to have a job fair there. And we have invited a significant amount of employees to join us. They've indicated their support to come. And we're going to take it to the city. We're going to have people on site looking to hire people. And as I indicated, we and at the same time, while we having these job fairs and career fairs, we are expanding our database, Quincy. And even if you don't find a job at the job fairs or the career fairs, we now have your data in our system, and we'll be able to send you vacancies electronically over your phones and set up interviews for you so we can assist you in finding gainful employment. And those are some of the initiatives that we're doing as we hope to reduce the level of unemployment here in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm. That is a very an impressive recitation, sir. The next question though is, and this is maybe a little tricky in the Bahamas, but we collected statistics on women's employment? And if so, what's the report there?
The answer to your question so far, Quincy, is no, not as yet, but we're in the process of doing that. The Department of Labor, through a grant from the Inter-American Development Bank, is now in a position to create data. So all of those recent persons that were added to the database, we're able to tell you their ages, their sex, their history, the industry they work in, and hopefully once we get 12 months of data, we'll be able to produce monthly reports and be able to let the policymakers know how many women are employed, how many unemployed, the areas where they're unemployed, their ages, their expertise, their skills, so we can have a better opportunity of designing programs to meet the needs.
It is I think encouraging to hear you say that there is a program that is aimed at creating or at least collecting data. That has been, I think, a part of the challenge with regard to to every policy in the Bahamas. It has been an inability to bring data.
There's been a significant weakness in our country, unable to support policy making with supporting data. And that's one of the challenges we had, and I think we are now poised. In fact, one of the things we hope to do through the Bahamas Decent Work Country program, you can hear about that in the next couple of days, we hope to create a synergy between all of the government agencies and NGOs on this type of data. So we need to be connected to National Insurance and the Department of Statistics and the Department of Labor and the Immigration Department. We should be able to talk each other electronically in this one labor management information system. And because we have been so weak in collecting data and sharing data, that's why we have been very ineffective in tackling the many ills in our society. Change that soon.
And this is a partnership with the IDB, you said?
Well, the ILO actually.
ILO, okay.
Yeah, the government of the Bahamas on December the 6th signed a memorandum of understanding with the International Labor Organization, headed by the Department of Labor, where we facilitate the Bahamas Decent Work Country program. That's a 5-year program with the International Labor Organizations, where we partner with the social partners and we address the many issues that face the labor market. And one of the deliverables in that program is the implementation of a national labor management information system. And we are eagerly hoping to have that facilitated in the next 12 months. You can imagine, Quincy, if you are unemployed, and you come to the Department of Labor, you could sit to the Department of Labor, and we could hook you with the Department of Social Services immediately. We could hook you with the National Insurance Board immediately. If you have a situation with the Women's Hate Crisis Center, we can assist you. And it's all done electronically and sharing information.
Yeah, this seems to be a challenge throughout our history, is that we have not taken data seriously. I'm glad to hear that this is something that we're focusing on at the Department of Labor. Before I get back to the sort of predetermined questions, just based on what you've said just now, what is the appetite of and this may be a tricky question, but answer it as best you can. The challenge with government departments is that they answer to a political directorate at a policy level. And so my question to you in terms of this data sensitivity is, what is the policy position of the administration on the importance of data at the department?
Well, you could say that as a result of the signing of the Decent Work Country program, the government of the Bahamas has issued, well, first, the National Trumpet Council is a apolitical organization. Yeah. It's based on the concept of ILO 144, social dialogue. And it's enshrined in statute, but we have some statutory responsibilities. We are represented at that council by employer representatives, government representatives, and public sector. I happen to have the privilege of serving as the deputy chairman. I can tell you that Section 10 of the National Tripartite Act makes for the government to issue its national policy on labor and industrial relations. That policy was issued in January of this year, and that policy supports the full implementation of the Bahamas Decent Work Country program, which includes a significant push to provide this data and support this gathering of data and the utilization of data. So the policy, we now have it enshrined in policy, supported by a statute, that we will 100% push in data. And you know how important data is, Quincy. You have been an advocate for this type of thing in this country for many, many years. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that this administration fully supports the implementation of a national labor market policy and our labor market information system, which is geared and designed to utilize, well, firstly to collect data and to utilize the data to assist in policy making.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the citizen is concerned, how do you keep them accountable? What is the accountability mechanism there?
When you say keep them accountable,
well, you have a policy that has been issued. Is that policy available for public viewing?
Oh yes, once we collecting data, the policy is available. In fact, you should be able to go on the NTC's website and see the national policy. If you want, I can provide you with a copy of the national policy. It's a public document, and it outlines the government's goals as it relates to labor and industrial relations in the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. It speaks to for instance, the implementation of a national child labor policy. It speaks to the facilitation of the Bahamas Decent Work Country program. It speaks to the transformation of the industrial tribunal to cause it to do certain things. It speaks to the adoption of ILO Convention 190, harassment in the workplace, violent harassment. So it has all of these things that the National Tripartite Council is now mandated to implement.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I know that it was covered to an extent by BIS,
yes.
But I didn't really see any local news coverage of it. And I find that's problematic for me. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Because I think that's a huge deal.
I concur with you. And sadly, as you know, we would have invited the press to cover the certain things, and we're happy to have BIS involved. And maybe we need to do more from labor. Maybe we need to have a special information gathering session to share with the public. And I agree with you. That's one of the other weaknesses we have. The Department of Labor and the things we do have been kept a secret. So I recently established a communication unit in the Department of Labor, and that unit has been charged with the distribution of information. And so I can tell you in the not too distant future, you will see a number of infomercials. Some of the things we do in which would include the national policy on labor and industrial relations.
All right, yeah. So if you would be kind enough to I would like to have a copy of it. If you could send it to me, that would be great.
In fact, what I will do, Quincy, I'm going to, as we speak in the show, I'm going to see if I can facilitate it and send you a copy as we speak.
That would be great. That'd be great. All right. So while that is happening, I'll get back to my my list of questions. This was something that I was excited to. I think that one of the problems that we have in talking politics is that we get bogged down in party politics, which is fun. I mean, party politics is fun. Don't get me wrong, but the national agenda sometimes gets lost. And I think there's nothing more critical for a national discussion than how we're going to put people back to work, or how we're going to get people back to work, right? And that's what I want to focus on. The UN, so the ILO says the global unemployment is expected to remain above pre-COVID levels until at least 2023.
Yeah.
That's a slap in the face in terms of just that's a very sobering thought, right? Because we have there's this narrative that's being promulgated in the political arena that corner and that everything is going to be all right now. But even if we have turned the corner, so to speak, the fact is we are still a long way away from everything being cool. You know what I'm saying? We still have a long way to go, and I think some very important questions have to be asked. Like, for example, the forecast was for the national unemployment rate to reach 18% by the end of 2021. So you had mentioned earlier a statistic, I think that was from 2015, 16. But what is the current unemployment rate and how does it break down?
Well, sadly, Mr. Conservative Quincy, the last labor force survey conducted in the fourth quarter of 2019, as a result of that, we have not been able to update it to statistics on the unemployment rate. I would not even begin to speculate. I would not speculate. I know for a fact that by hopefully a survey is expected to be conducted by the middle of April, but when information being made to the public by the end of April, first week in May. And the reason why it was delayed because the Department of Statistics, who is statutorily responsible for conducting that survey, has been busy completing the national census. And so I would not speculate on what the unemployment rate is. I know that the last survey that was taken in 2019, the unemployment rate was 9.1%. I would not even begin to speculate what it is now. I suspect it is higher than that, but I would not even begin to try. So that's the best I am prepared to say now on that.
I understand that as a man of data and science, you can't guesstimate, but I think it would be silly to imagine that the unemployment rate is 9% now.
Oh no, I suspect not.
Yeah.
So can't see one other thing we look at, right? When we calculate unemployment, we also have to look at those persons who have stopped looking for work, huh?
Yes.
And so that's very important. Maybe because of this pandemic, because of COVID-19, people they'll begin to try and find a job. And so we have to create opportunities for them. And so when someone in my position speaks to an unemployment rate, I need to be extremely careful what I say.
Yeah, I'm coming to the people who have left or who may have left the job market. But in terms of looking at sort of an unemployment rate of, let's say, more than 9%, that's as far as we're comfortable going. Fine. We expect that as ILO says, global unemployment is expected to stay above that level at least until 2023. So you've laid out some of the steps that the department is taking, specifically with target groups like young people and so on and so forth. But in terms of addressing the persistent unemployment during the COVID-19 pandemic, stemming from economic malaise with regard to the recovery from Hurricane Dorian, are there other steps that are being taken?
Certainly. The government of the Bahamas has, during the annual budget debate recently in Parliament, the mid-year budget debate, indicate a number of foreign direct investments that is designed to attack directly the unemployment rate. I know specifically in Grand Bahama there are two or three proofs. They are also anxiously awaiting the sale of the Al property, the development of the harbor, and development that's expected to be in the West End. I have not at liberty to say that any specific, but that has been designed to try and bring the economy of Grand Bahama back. Mm-hmm. Then there are a number of projects as announced by the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Aviation, the Honorable Chester Cooper. He recently announced 2 or 3 major developments in Exumas, equating to about $500 million in direct foreign investments. And those projects, along with a couple of others that's on the drawing board, have been approved by the National Economic Council and designed specifically to have a direct impact on employment, both on the construction side, which is going to play a major role in jobs in the construction sector, but even past the construction sector, the operational side of these tourist-based opportunities. One thing I do hope is that we look, while tourism will be our main industry for the foreseeable future, I think policy makers have to also attract investments outside of tourism, which will obviously assist us in the event a hurricane comes or, God forbid, another pandemic. But we need to find mechanisms to redirect some of the foreign direct investors into other areas. And hopefully that will be done soon.
The thing is, we have this, we have this national preoccupation with tourism, which is understandable because the way that we've developed our economy, it's the quickest level we can pull to get revenue and also boost employment. But I mean, what is the conversation about diversification away from or even within the tourism sector? I mean, how are we, from a policy position, trying to prepare the economy to withstand shocks to tourism?
Well, Chester, I can't speak to a policy initiative by the.
That's a question for Chester, but yeah. I asking you. Yeah.
What I can tell you is that the Department of Labor has and will use its resources to prepare the public officers within our purview of some of the expected things that happen. Let me give you a few examples, We know that there is a development in West End Grand Bahama, Mm-hmm. So what are we doing? The Department of Labor is in the final stages of opening an office in 8 Mile Rock, to prepare for the increased employment opportunities on the western side of Grand Bahama. We know that as a result of the economic activity in Bimini and the newly developed Ocean Key property, we, in another week or so, will open up an office on the island of Bimini because we foresee increased employment opportunities in those areas. So we need to prepare our staff and make it the services of the Department of Labor available to the citizen residents in those areas. Secondly, the Department of Labor, through a policy decision of the government of the Bahamas, is really and truly going to enforce the provisions of Section 86 of the Industrial Relations Act. Section 86 of the Industrial Relations for the Director of Labor to issue a labor certificate to anybody who's seeking to bring in non-Bahamians to work. And that labor certificate says that there are no Bahamians qualified and available to fill that position, and as such, you're authorized to bring in non-Bahamians. We have been directed to strictly enforce that. So many employers are going to see when they apply for non-Bahamians to work, if the Director of Labor is satisfied that there are qualified and available Bahamians, those work permits will not be approved. Because we see Bahamians should have the opportunity to fill these positions, and the revenues from these positions will stay in the Bahamas. And that's some of the policy initiatives that will be facilitated by the Department of Labor.
Sorry, go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
In anticipation of some of the opportunities that will become available.
My question now, I'm going to move away from policy questions that I shouldn't be asking you. The ILO education and training institutions, and the ILO chief, Mr. Guy Ryder, says there can't really be a real recovery from the pandemic without a broad-based labor market recovery. And to be sustainable, he says, this recovery must be based on principles of decent work, including health and safety, equity, social protection, and social dialogue. Now, you're an old hat with labor relations in this country. You know some of the challenges that have faced our market in terms of decent work. So, what is required from a labor market perspective, or what is required for a labor market recovery from your perspective, in terms of if you can make recommendations to the administration and guide the work of your department to your heart's content?
Yeah, you are so right, Quincy. That report, very comprehensive report by the ILO, and the need for decent work is at the foundation of the Bahamas Decent Work Country program that I spoke about earlier. Mm-hmm. In fact, I have to provide you with an electronic copy of the Decent Work Country program. And there are 4 main priorities coming out of the Bahamas Decent Work Country program, which are the creation of jobs, the development of skills, creation of jobs, priority 1. And priority 2 is social dialogue. And priority 3 is the same priorities that Mr. Ryder spoke about. And one of the initiatives that Mr. Ryder spoke in this report and is contained in our Decent Work Country program to ensure and to take into account that significant closure of educational institutions and that 2-3 year gap is the enactment of legislation to establish a national apprenticeship program. And this apprenticeship program will have to be designed to ensure that those young men and women whose up for education and training have an opportunity to be re-engaged at a national level with a combination of on-the-job training, theoretical training, and being paid while they are trained in conjunction with the private sector. And let me give you a prime example. The survey conducted by the IDB in 2012, produced in 2013, identified 3 major industries that there was a need for qualified Bahamians: construction, medical and allied services, and information technology. So we want to design a national apprenticeship program where employers in those 3 sectors, oh, by the way, and another sector, the 4th one, was the maritime industry, which is a major project. I can talk about that in a few minutes. But those 4 sectors, we're going to design a program, a national apprenticeship program, in conjunction with the ILO, whereby employers, the government, and the trade union representatives, the worker representatives, find a mechanism where over a period, say a year, for these people to be paid a stipend in conjunction with the employer, the government through BTVI, National Training Agency, and other private sector training institutions provide training, theoretical training, classroom training, and you go in the classroom for 3 days of the week, and you go in the workplace for 2 days of the week, and you get a certain amount of hours, you become certified while you're employed at the same time. And if we could do that for 1,200 to 1,500 young people for a year, for a 5-year period, at the end of that year, it is anticipated that these people will contribute so much to the employer's business. That combination of government contribution and employers' contribution will now be taken on 100% by employees. These people can be gainfully employed, certified, and have a skill in these 4 areas. It's amazing how many non-Bahamians work in the maritime sector that Bahamians are qualified to do, on which the ship owners want Bahamians to work. So we have to develop that with the ship owners to make sure that the maritime sector is a major, major push in any economic development that we have in our country.
Yeah, I have friends who are either parents or relatives of young Bahamians who are either at Lowell J. Mortimer or in some kind of maritime training program. And these are, highly qualified, very skilled young people who are being sought after by the big shipping companies, but they can't seem to find a leg up here. So I'm sure they're excited to hear what you have to say on that score.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, we are very excited about the opportunities in the maritime sector. We have to educate the Quincy friend who does that. You'll be surprised how many Bahamians are fearful, literally fearful of leaving the Bahamas to look for other opportunities elsewhere. And we have to encourage our young men and our young women to step out of the box and take the opportunity to travel the world, be employed in this industry, because there are many exciting opportunities in this industry.
Mm-hmm. I have one of my friends. Every time I talk to her son is in a different part of the world, captaining or co-piloting some ship or some vessel somewhere. And I'm like, you have a chance to go back and do things differently. That sounds like something I might want to try.
Right.
Who wouldn't want to be a captain or a pilot of one of these giant ships cruising around the world, stopping in Dubai and then stopping in all these different places to try and just as a professional life. That just sounds like the coolest thing in the world.
Quincy, and let's forget the captain side, and the engineering side. Even the hotel side of these ships,
Yeah.
Because I've had a chance to when they were in port to see, because we had to go and inspect the ships to make sure these Bahamians who are employed in these ships are meet certain standards, because they are Bahamian registered vehicle, so that's based on Bahamian law. So I can tell you they have opportunities to work, to save significant amount of your monies, because your room is accounted for, your food and drink is accommodated for. So when you get your salary, you have very little to spend it on,
Yeah.
The ship have educational programs where you could study while you're working on the ship. And so, and it's designed where you could work on a ship for 4 months, be off for another 3-4 weeks, then go back on the ship, and you could, like you say, you could see the world.
Yeah.
But we have difficulty in convincing young Bahamians to seize these opportunities. We have to do a better job in our department and in our society in general to change the mindset of some of our young people.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing, because to me, we don't take. I mean, this is, and you and I could run all day, but we don't take advantage of what are our natural advantages in this country. We sit at the crossroads of the transnational shipping lanes. And the fact that we have the third largest ship registry in the world should mean that our maritime students have a tremendous opportunity to work on ships that fly the Bahamas flag. And what are we doing as a nation? We are pushing our people into tourism, completely ignoring the maritime sector and what a powerhouse we could be in that sector. And again, this ain't, you don't make government policy, so I can't beat you for that. But it's like the department has to do something to try and reach out and make the maritime sector sexy, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and we have to do a better job, and that's one of the goals of the National Tribal Council. In fact, one of the strategic objective, what we did in the ILO held a workshop with the Bahamian social partners, March 7th to 11th here in the Bahamas. And it was a results-based management workshop where they would have shared with us how to develop results-based management. And one of the things we decided as a deliverable was to establish a specific subcommittee of the NTC to concentrate on employment in the maritime sector. So we're going to get the professionals in the maritime sector in the Bahamas, the trade union representatives, the government representative, and we're going to steer from as early as the high schools, young Bahamians in the maritime field.
Yeah, this is good. So we seem to be always playing catch up at a national level. And again, I think a lot of the times I think that this is because we have the you have interference at a policy level from the political directorate, because this party wants to move their agenda forward and that party has to stop this and whatever. But it's like we have to get to a point at which, while government is continuous and the political directorate continues to change and whatever, the work of an important institution like the Department of Labor continues uninterrupted. And you don't have to change your focus so much when there's a new government,
Certainly.
In terms of the future, sorry, one more time. I still have a couple of more questions, so okay. I don't want to be very big. I want to get to all of my questions before I start freestyling here. As in previous crises, it's also the ILO report also highlighted that temporary employment created a sort of a buffer for some people against the shocks of the pandemic. And while many temporary jobs were either terminated or not renewed, alternative jobs were created, perhaps including for some workers who had lost full-time work. So we've seen, around the world, there's been sort of a shift, so to speak, in the labor market, where jobs have migrated from one sector to another. But what does that look like in the Bahamas? Has the temporary job market been a factor at all?
Yes, we have seen that trend too here in the Bahamas. In fact, in the height of the pandemic, when we had thousands and thousands of men and women on furlough, they became very creative and start small businesses, home-based businesses, delivery-based businesses. And some of those people chose not to come up here or a business. And so we have seen that trend. I'm happy that that trend has come. They have created employment opportunities for themselves in small business and medium-sized businesses. And as a result of that, that's why a major hotel property came to my office last week and said, listen, I don't want to live until you give me at least 70 resumes. I need to hire 40 people today. Because persons have selected, I will not go back. I want to choose to be made redundant, which they obviously cannot do. And so they have sought to begin their own businesses. And I hope it can be sustained. That's wonderful. And people like them, the government need to have policies and programs to assist those persons, to provide them with small grants and small loans to sustain their businesses. And I know that's one of the things that the Minister of Youth Sports indicated in his contribution to the budget debate, where there are a significant amount of applications available, and come July 1st, they expect to approve a number of grants to young people like that who have decided to take their grants and go their own businesses. But we need more programs like that to create entrepreneurs and small business.
By talking about small businesses, you're infringing on an area that I really want to get at, but I'm trying to keep it narrow so that I have enough time to get through everything here. But this idea of going into business for myself, meaning that I remove myself from the labor market, I think it's very sexy. There's something wonderful about taking the opportunity of losing a job and then turning that around and starting your own business. That just makes me happy. How are we encouraging that? Is there a way that the Labor Department is encouraging that particular trend?
I don't
know if it's your job, but I'm just curious. Yeah.
Okay. We see, and the answer is yes. The Public Employment Services Unit of the Department of Labor has, when those same persons would have come to us to have their unemployment benefit cards stamped, we would have provided them opportunities to be trained in entrepreneurship. That was that foundation model we're talking about. A number of persons created small business as a result of that. In addition to that, we would have steered a number of those persons to BTBI to become certified in other areas. People just need to know how to create business, how to, for instance, do an IT course on QuickBooks, learn how to manage businesses. So the answer is yes. We don't do enough, though, my brother. We don't do enough. I think that's one of the things we have to do better. And we are right now discussing with BTVI a memorandum of understanding where we use the facilities of our space at the Department of Labor to provide those type of seminars and workshops for potential entrepreneurs to hear about what it is to run a business and how it is to operate a business. Where can you go for a grant? Where can you go for a loan? The idea is to provide employment opportunities for Bahamians. And if it means steering them in the right direction to establish and operate a small business, that's what we have to do. But we have to do more. We definitely do not do enough.
The people who have left the job market entirely,
right?
What does that look like? How many of them are there, and how do we get them back into the job market?
We don't have any statistics, and we could just gather from the request for unemployment assistance. As you know, the unemployment assistance with the National Insurance Board is for a 12-month period. So when we see persons stop coming to the Department of Labor to have their unemployment card stamped, we use that to measure more than likely they stop looking for a job. And so what we have done is we are now going out. the staff of the Public Employment Services Unit. We have 3 offices here in New Providence, and I have mandated all offices in the Family Island to go out to the business community, develop relationship with the business communities. So whenever they have a vacancy, we compile this list of vacancies and we don't wait for them to call us. We call them. Say, okay, listen, there is an opportunity here at this company. Are you interested? Can we set up an interview for you? And that's some of the things that the staff of the Public Employment Services has a project that will begin next month. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we'll be able to, using our 3 zones, our zones, the Carmichael Road office will take from Blue Hill Road, go west. The Robertson Road office will take from Blue Hill Road to Marathon Road. And the Rosetta Street office will take from Marathon Road, go east. And the idea is for us to visit the various employees in those areas, identify job vacancies in those areas, and try and match the job seekers in our database to these job vacancies. So those persons who are no longer looking for a job, it is our responsibility to reach out to them and let them know there is an opportunity for you. Are you interested in work? And that's some of the things that we hope to do soon.
Mm-hmm. All right. And sort of from the report has to do with labor standards. And then I have a couple of other questions from some of my research. In terms of the standards that employers have to meet in terms of, what I guess would be considered decent work at present, where do you see that we have, let me put it like this. If you talk to people who work in certain industries, and you know which industries I'm talking about, they complain about the working conditions that they have.
Okay.
And occasionally, the unions will come up with, they'll come to the public and talk about conditions at such and such a place or conditions in such and such an environment. So how serious is the department about enforcing labor standards? And are we in the post-COVID environment, are we in labor standards?
Let me answer that.
In terms of conditions of employment.
Section 4 of the Occupational Health and Safety of the Worker provides that every employer has a duty of care to ensure that his employees work in a safe environment. The Occupational Health and Safety of the Worker is the foundation for safety in the workplace. My department just recently developed a 3-year strategic plan. And one of the primary focus of that plan is to ensure that the provisions of the Health and Safety of the Worker are enforced on a regular and consistent basis. And we're doing a couple of things. We had a manpower problem in that department. For years, we did not have sufficient inspectors. It's called the OSH and Special Projects Department, Occupational Safety and Health Department. And thankfully, we just got a cadre of new people in New Providence and Grand Bahama and in Andros. We now have the manpower needed to fully monitor and enforce occupational safety at work. And so the assistant director for that department, Mr. Kenneth Wilkerson, has been charged with a couple of things, and the public need to be aware of this. In the construction sector, you are required through international standards that you spoke about to wear certain personal protective equipment while you're on the job. Steel-toe shoes, hat, the vest, make sure those scaffolds are properly done so there are no accidents on the job. So my department is presently and about to finalize a schedule of every construction project in New Providence and Grand Bahama. And we're going to be doing regular and consistent inspections to make sure that health and safety standards are adhered to. In the Act, in Section 11 and 12 of the Act, we have what we call prohibitive notices and improvement notices, where we have the legal authority to demand employers, particularly in the construction sector, correct things that we see. And we have the statutory power to shut a job down if they are not being done. And so that's a major thrust of our department. Secondly, the regulations that operate in the environment, Quincy, is that every building in this country that has 25 or more people working in it with a worker representative on that committee to make sure that health and safety standards are maintained in that establishment. And we have not been doing it. So that's another initiative of this department. And guess what, Quincy? We're going to start with the government buildings,
Yeah.
Because the government can't mandate something that they're not doing themselves. So during his contribution to the mid-year budget debate, my minister, Keith Bell, has put every government minister on notice that the Department of Labor inspectors will be coming around to visit you. We will help decorate, process after the committees. We will help you to organize the committees to make sure that we reduce the amount of accidents on the job. And these same places that are unhealthy and unsafe to work, we're going to have the committee police themselves. We're going to teach the committee how to do it. And as I indicated, we can start with the government complexes. Then we finish with the government complexes, we go on to the private sector, because the government can't hope to enforce the regulations if they are not doing it themselves. And finally, Quincy, there has been a real gap. Just the Bahamas Decent Work Country program that I just sent to you a few minutes ago. If you look in priority, the weaknesses we had in our country for years of labor inspectors. And one of the things identified is that we have so many inspectors in this country in various government agencies, and we don't talk to each other. We have inspectors in social services. We have inspectors in national insurance. We have inspectors in the port. We have inspectors in agriculture, all designed to make sure that the environment where the humans work are safe. But we don't talk to each other. So the Department of Labor is compiling a policy for the enactment of a national inspector task force. So we know when we go to, for instance, a building, an inspector from the Ministry of Works who would inspect a building on a construction site, and they see that the health and safety standards are not being met, then they can be able to reach us immediately and ensure that the standards are kept. We go to an inspector in the Department of Social Services, and they go to a home where people are looking for system social services and nobody in the house working, So they should be able to reach out to the Department of the Ministry of the Department of Labor and our Public Employment Service and say, listen, man, somebody in this house needs to work. And because we don't talk to each other, we don't know, but we are fixing that problem now. So those are some of the initiatives that we're doing now to make sure that international labor standards are adhered to in our country. Believe it or not, Quincy, when someone gets hurt in the job, and I know this your pet peeve too, it puts a major impact on the National Insurance Fund. And so these are some of the initiatives that we're to make sure that we maintain international labor standards, particularly in the workplace.
I want to go through this this document that you sent me, and I'm going to have you back in a couple of weeks to go through this together with a fine tooth comb.
Sure.
But this memorandum of understanding has some commitments in it that I really like.
Tell me something, Quincy. Did I send you the memorandum of understanding and the Decent Work Country program?
Yeah, the Decent Work Country program has a memorandum in it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's a memorandum that the government signed on December 6th of last year.
Yeah. I see this. I see all the signatures. So that means I can talk to these people hard then. All right.
Exactly.
All right. Great. Okay. I'm not gonna get distracted by that. But I coming back to that in a bit.
Okay.
So I'm through it, and I have some concrete questions. I'd like to have you back to talk more about that.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so in terms of, so you talked about some stuff earlier that kind of got my mind moving in another direction, and this is a bit of a deviation from where we were earlier. But in terms of the skills that you are seeking to build and assist Bahamians in acquiring, how can we determine the value of skills relevant to the future of work? And how can we increase the value of human labor here in the Bahamas in the coming years?
We have to use international standards, Clint, best practices around the world to, I wouldn't say put a price on it, but put a value on what we do in the world of work. The future of work is a major initiative of the International Labour Organization, and Guy Ryder, in his capacity Secretary General, is going to have a major thrust during the 110th session of the ILO, which is going to be held in June of this year in Geneva. We have so many industries, the green economy, the orange economy, the blue economy, that we are not taking advantage of in our country. Those three economies alone can provide thousands and thousands of jobs, but insufficient concentration paid to it. And that's one of the things through the Bahamas Decent Work Country program. We hope to develop skills. As you see, the jobs and skills in that document is the number one priority. So we have to, and the ILO has outlined some of the deliverables we have set in that workshop. We have set in that workshop some goals. That March workshop we spoke about identifying jobs of the future and steering Bahamians toward those jobs of the future and putting a value in those jobs. Let me give you a prime example. You work in the hotel sector, tourism sector, you are a mid-level manager, and you could take home $800-900 a week, and God forbid you get hurt in the job, you have very little security, But when you talk about the blue economy, you can imagine the kind of income Bahamians can derive from the sea. You have wide markets out there seeking the many different species of sea life we have in our country, and we have not taken advantage of it. We have a market in Athens and Crooked Island called Cascarilla Bar, and we have Bahamians working in that industry who go on the labor intense side and go and cut the bark, and we export them to Europe, and they make all kind of products from this Bahamian grown product, and it's one of the highest quality they get. That's why they come to us. We need to stop thinking about exporting this bark, and produce the many materials here in the Bahamas. We have land in Athens and Crooked Island unlimited. We could ask a foreign investor or get some Bahamian investors to develop a manufacturing and processing plant here on one of those islands and create a whole new industry, develop employment opportunities. But we have to think about jobs of the future. And so that's some of the things where the policymakers need the data that we're trying to get now to develop programs and plans to truly make it better in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm. How far behind are we, in your view? Just because this is a conversation that we've been having for years. So, I mean, just out of curiosity, not that it means anything, but how far behind are
you? We're far behind, Clint. We're far behind because I think our education system for the job for the future, and I think they're in the process of doing it now. But we try so much. Our education system is built on trying to make everybody a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. Why don't we design programs from as early as grade 8 to steer our young people in different directions, farming, fishing, livestock development. Why can't we design, when we have non-Bahamians, listen to this, we have non-Bahamians coming in our country and performing welding tasks, and getting paid $35 an hour in the Bahamas. Getting paid $35 an hour because Bahamians think welding is something they should not do. But if we design programs in grade 8 to teach people how to weld, by the time they reach grade 12, they can become certified and they can come out of high school and demand those jobs. But no, we want them to take these courses because we want them to be a doctor or a lawyer. We have sea creatures that in our waters are longed for in the Asian market, in China and Japan and Vietnam. But we don't teach our young men how to dive and farm these creatures. So when they come out of high school, they can already be certified as divers and stuff, and they can export these things and be able to create industries. You know why? Because we want to be a doctor or a lawyer. So our philosophy have to change, Clint. I keep calling you Clint.
You do. That's all right. I don't mind.
And so we need the media to assist us because all of us are at fault, All of us are at fault. When I have a son now who went to university, and I really wanted him to be a marine biologist. But he trained in currency in the United States now. We didn't teach him that. But he into Bitcoins now. And the kind of income he making, we didn't teach him that in high school. We didn't teach him that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to be more open-minded in our education system. And when we see those young people who are not too much interested in getting GCE maths, and we put them in detention and do this, we need to, maybe what do you want to do? What do you want to be? They may be good with their hands. We have to bring in people in this country, whether Parker, whether Quincy, to do air conditioning work. HVC specialized air conditioning work. We have to bring in Mexicans and people from Ecuador because the limited amount of Bahamians who are qualified to do it have a job. So when a non-Bahamian is required, and we go to our database, and we reach the people who are certified, they say, I'm sorry, I have a job. We have no other choice but to approve labor certificate and work permit, and we paying these non-Bahamians $1,000 a week to install and maintain air conditioning systems.
So what I like to do is I like to let information like that just sit there for a little while and let people think about it. Because what you said just now is deep.
We have to find a way. We have to find a way.
No. Let it sit for another little another 10 seconds.
Yes, sir.
I want people to be in their car or in their driveway or in their house or out in the backyard going, what? Because, anyhow, you're preaching. What are the economic and social costs and benefits, in your view, of modernizing worker support systems on providing social protection for workers, but particularly for women and those in either part-time or temporary work?
Oh, boy. Listen, we have such a lag, Clint, in the benefit the social benefits of people. Let me tell you one of the greatest things that we can do, eh?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, for public officers, we have public officers who are employed by the by the public, work for 30 years, 35 years, do a wonderful job. Because we have a system which says that the government contributes to their pension fund. Eh? So why can't we have a system where public officers, in addition to the government be allowed to contribute to their own pension fund? Just think about that. Think about the social impact that will have. They won't want to, because they, at the end of their career, have a higher pension. Some of them may want to retire earlier and make way for other people in the public service. Mm-hmm. Think about this, Clint. Think about this. You know why people stay on jobs? Because a lot of their private pension funds that they pay into now are not transferable or transportable. What if we develop a pension fund where if you work for one company and you find a different job, you can leave the company and you can take your pension lesson hey with you. You can think about the impact that will have on our social benefit. Let's talk about employees who, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, they were just unable to sustain their business, can't operate. But under the law, they are now required to make redundancy payment. So what if we develop, like they have in Singapore and in Israel, a national redundancy fund where situations like the pandemic, an employee wouldn't have to come up with all this money to make redundancy payments. You can imagine the impact that have on businesses. People will be able to stay open. Let's talk about healthcare, Clint. Let's talk about healthcare, the social benefit of healthcare. If we really and truly, and this is not a pet peeve of mine, a national healthcare system, where if you're sick and you work and you won't have to worry about having to pay doctors $3,000 for simple things, because we have a national healthcare system that takes care of its citizens and its residents. All of these are what we consider. And while we have made some strides in our country, we have to do more to make sure that those persons in the labor market have access to these type of social benefits. Because a worker that is comfortable in their work has to be more productive. And that's one of the other things we do too. And you know, I'm a trade unionist, but I make no qualms about it. We have to produce more in our country. We have to have a national effort to increase the level of productivity in the workplace. Too many of our people, both in the public and the private sector, are not producing enough. We have to create ways to improve efficiency and productivity in the workplace. And once it improves in the enterprise level, it will move to the national level. And we become more productive. People will value our work more.
I think that the challenge is often trying to figure out how to get this conversation from behind closed doors out into the public arena, right? Where it affects public policy. Because every politician that I know anyway goes making positive contributions. You know, they want to make life better for somebody. And they often get chewed up in whatever the party leader's politics might be. And their own portfolio may not necessarily get the attention it deserves. As a citizen, though, I'm tired of that, right? Not for nothing, I know Keith Bell. I want Keith Bell to succeed as a Minister of Labor. Keith Bell, like politics, a little too much for my taste, but I wish him every success. But we have to do something different with the Farquharson, because this conversation that you and I are having is a great conversation. But I'm worried that without change, we're going to have the same conversation next year. You know what I'm saying?
I can say that the plans outlined by me and the team at the Department of Labor, the plans outlined in the Bahamas Decent Work Country Program, the Minister of Labor, the Honorable Keith Bell, is 100% behind those. He has given us the authority to implement those plans. And he looks forward to any assistance that we need. He, since his appointment, has been, as you can see from press reports, at the forefront of ensuring that the very concept of decent work and social dialogue are the watchword for the Department of Labor and the Ministry of Labor. Now, any other thing, I have no comment on that, but I can tell you he encourages us each day. Each day he gives us and he provides us with the tools necessary for us to perform our jobs.
Mm-hmm. All right. As I say, the proof of the pudding is in the pie. So we can find out. Yeah. The next question is, your boy who's doing, cryptocurrencies might be able to answer this, but how do automation and digitization impact things like income inequality? How can workers from all backgrounds benefit from tech?
Okay, we have done some things. Right, and let me use my department as an example. Like, we have a process in our department. You hear me talk about the labor certificates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since September, when I was reappointed as Director of Labor, one of the first things I did is, through the Department of Information Technology, begin the process of the digitalization of a couple of units inside my department. The processing of innovation, the final stages of being digitized. What does that mean, It's a very manual system. You have to fill out a form. You have to physically bring that form in. You have to physically come in and pay. All the things you have to physically do. Hopefully in another couple of weeks, you'll be able to do that entire process online. You'll be able to pay online. You should be able to get an email from me with your labor certificate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Saves time, saves money for the employer, The process of applying for a trade dispute, and a not to dispute, upload all of your supporting documents, conduct a hearing online, and electronically submit the referral to the industrial tribunal. That's what technology does. It saves time, it saves monies, both for the employer and for the employee. And that's innovation. We have to find a way to modernize government services to make it better for the small man. And the Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor is doing its part. A number of government agencies are also moving toward utilization of technology. Previously, our public employment exchange services, you had to physically come into the Department of Labor to become a part of it. Now everything is electronically. You could apply for a job online. You could be interviewed online. You could send your resume, your certificates online. We could match you with an interview online, all through the use of technology. And it saves time. It saves a lot of effort and saves stress, because things are done much more quickly now, much more efficiently. And there's accountability.
Accountability is important. What new systems of education and training could help workers reap gains from technology?
Wonderful. Listen, it so happened that the National Training Agency is a part of the Ministry of Labor. And I can tell you, they have used technology in such a positive way where many persons have become certified using the online portal. In fact, Keith Bell, the Honorable Minister of Keith Bell, recently participated in the graduation ceremony last month with NTA, where they had 6 students on the island of Crocodile Island, I think 4 or 5 in Exuma, and a couple in Long Island, did their entire training course online. The graduation was online, and their certification was issued online. So that's what technology does. They can remain in their respective homes in Crooked Island, were taught lessons using technology, graduated, became certified, and received their diplomas electronically. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
That's what innovation does.
And train Bahamians in order to help them take advantage of whatever opportunities are abounding in the world of work because of technology and because of automation. How do we educate our workforce to take advantage of those opportunities?
It has to start with a changing in the mindset of policymakers, It has to start with changing the mindset of policymakers. Schools, as a result of COVID-19, schools are now available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But some of the weaknesses we have here in our country, which we hope to have addressed on, is access to technology. You can have all the technology you want, but if a child has to go on the park to do his homework because they ain't got no power in their house, or they ain't got no cable TV, or they ain't got no internet, it's a disadvantage. You can have all the technology you want, but if you don't give the small man access to utilize this technology, we will fail. We will fail, and hopefully the policymakers are in the process of ensuring that every child, every citizen, just how they have to have easy access to water, have easy access to the use of technology. If we have to succeed as a people.
Do you believe that we are ready for the next wave of whatever our technological, whatever the world technological advance might be? Are we ready in the Bahamas?
If we are ready?
Yeah.
I think this generation is not ready. I think the next generation is. And it's simply because we're at a stage now, Brother Quincy, that the old saying is you can't teach old dog new tricks, eh?
That's what they say.
So people in my age bracket was forced to use technology to their advantage. But if we look at the young children today coming up, Clint, when I have a problem with my phone, and I don't know how to understand my phone, Clint, you know who solved my problem? Serenity, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And I say, how can I problem with the phone? How can I get to me? She teach me the other day how to use things on WhatsApp when I didn't even know. And she's 6. So the answer is yes. The children of today, in 10 years, when they're ready to hit the world of work, they will be ready for the uses of technology to improve their quality of life and their standard of living. I truly believe that.
I question. I agree with you. I agree with you. My question though is, what are we doing to ensure that, or are we just leaving it to chance? Right.
I heard your question, and I can't answer that. I know what we need to do, but I can't say what we're doing. We need to make sure that free internet access is available to every citizen and resident of this country. Full stop. For educational purposes. How we do it, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it. But you can't get free because your government companies are the business. But for educational opportunities, we need to find a way to do it. And I don't know how.
But you got to figure it out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because just like you're saying, right? The challenge of having a group of students that are being pushed towards they're being pushed as or lawyers or accountants or engineers or whatever have you. They are not being pushed into things like electrical engineering or coding or computer technology.
Technology.
Or ICT, and any of the basic ICT stuff. So it's like we are almost educating our workforce to be obsolete before they even get out of school.
Right.
And there has to be I guess, is it possible that the department, through the National Training Agency or some other arm, could maybe come up with or create a sort of a list of these are the subject areas that every student needs to take in order to be properly equipped for the new world of work.
The job of future. Clint, when you read that Eastern World Country Program, contained in that is the need to develop a national training agency, because we have so many various government departments, private sector organizations, government agencies duplicating our services. And the Decent Work Country Program speaks about the development of a truly national training institute. It may be the NTA, but there's nowhere in the world you could tell me BTVI, NTA, this one, doing the same thing. We should be able to identify, like you said, the jobs of the future and say, BTVI, you concentrate on this, private sector, you concentrate on this, and NTA be the overall agency that ensures that these jobs that are becoming available, that the payments are trained to fill them. That's what a truly national training institute is.
Mm-hmm.
The maritime sector, the ITC sector, the coding sector, the medical and allied services sector. We need to provide for prayer, payments to fill these jobs. And right now, Quincy, we're not doing it. We're not doing it.
And we are going to get our children, certainly, are going to get left behind and continue to get left behind because we didn't do our jobs properly.
Right.
So the next question then, I guess, is how do you demonstrate the relationship between the skill gains in training and their economic mobility, right? Like what do you do to show them that if you do this will happen? These are your options. You broaden your horizons when you take this action.
Yeah. Again, Brother Quincy, wonderful question. Thank you for that question. If you look in the priority tree of the Decent Work Country Program, you will see the need for social dialogue and improve the relationship between the employer, the government, and the private sector through civil society. You know how to do it? When we developed this national training institute we talk about, let's have the private sector representative of business and commerce be the ones who are the movers and shakers. So when there is a need to have medical technologists, people to do MRIs and CAT scans, when you have people from Africa doing it or England doing it, we tied the training to the reward and the economic results. Mm-hmm. So people who own the National Training Agency would be able to say, listen, if you become certified at this, you don't need a degree now. But if you become certified, that person who I hired from England, and I pay him $15,000 a year for his work permit, and I provide this person with housing and car allowance, I can give you the behemoth the same thing. That's what we have to do.
You ain't wrong, but you live in, okay. Are you living in a fantasy world, Robert Farquharson? Where
it's just willpower, Clint. It's just willpower. Quincy, it's willpower. Quincy, listen to me, my brother. Listen to me. We have the willpower in this country, and I can say this with a shot of a doubt. Just 2 weeks ago, based on an investigation we did at the Department of Labor, I made a recommendation to the Director of Immigration. And I said to the Director of Immigration, this person, this company in the financial services sector is applying for foreigners to do this job. I said, I have in my database, I think it was 18 behemoths, qualified, trained, and unemployed to do this job. And I recommended that when this work permit ends, it's not renewed. I sent those 18 resumes to the company, and I told them in writing that the Department of Labor has recommended that this work permit not be renewed. We can't tell you who to hire, but we got 18 qualified, unemployed, available behemoths to fill that job. So, Quincy, let me tell you what the company did, They put out an ad for the behemoth to fill the position, But the salary they put in the ad was about 40% less than the non-behemoth was making. And they did not include in the ad that they were paying housing allowance for the non-behemoth, and they were providing non-behemoth with transportation allowance. And believe me, I knew that because of the investigation that we did. And I can't tell them who to hire, but I know one thing, that non-behemoth ain't gonna get that job. And you need to offer the behemoth the same salary package. Because if the non-behemoth is making it, and the behemoth is qualified, they should be afforded the same opportunity. You agree with me?
I agree 100%.
But it's the willpower that we have to do it.
But I agree with what you're saying. The challenge comes back to, you know, and I know exactly how this is going to go. You are going to hold your ground. The employer is going to make a phone call. You are going to get a phone call, and you're going to be directed to do a certain thing. And because you have churned the feed, including one who doing cryptocurrency, and because you was a good uncle and you got to look after your niece who will show you how to deal with your cell phone, you're going to have to do what you got to do.
Well, obviously, that's probably why, well, I can't be too specific, right?
Yes.
But I could say that, let me see how I can put this. I have been fully supported in my recommendation thus far by the policymakers. I can't say that now.
I will accept that and leave that at that.
Yeah.
I have two final questions for you, sir. That March is being celebrated around the world is International Women's Month.
Yes, on March 8th is International Women's Day.
Women's, yeah. And so one of my, I've been making sure that we include the question specifically about women's participation in the labor force throughout our conversation. And one of my final questions in terms of women's participation in the labor force is what factors hinder women's participation in the labor force in the Bahamas, and how do these barriers impact women's work in the future and their career trajectories?
Well, as a hindrance, I think for some time there has been a reluctance by Bahamian women to even attempt to enter certain classes of work. That has now changed, Clint. We have women involved in, I know of no industry, none, where employed. I think you need more balance. I think you need more women involvement. But I think that old adage that certain categories of jobs are not for women, I think that is changing, and it's changing rapidly. Prime example, out of those 320 or 22 people that were interviewed by ENCA on Saturday past, I think there were about 60-something of them, or close to 70 of them, were women, these skilled women, crane operators, forklift drivers with certification. Now we need more. But I think that old adage that women don't participate in certain industries, I think that's dying. And we want to encourage our women to really take advantage of these opportunities.
You are the director of labor. You see a lot that we as the citizens can't see, just by virtue of where you sit. So I'm going to ask you again, and I'm going to push you a little bit on this. Are you saying to me that you don't believe that there are any factors that are serving as barriers?
For women? No, I'm not. Yeah. I'm not saying there are any factors now. I'm not saying there are any factors. There are a number of factors where many companies attempt to create a glass ceiling for women. I think there is some level of inequality as far as pay for women as well. But I've seen women who have overcome those factors and overcome those. As a prime example, if you look at the young women in that company who are prominent positions in that company, it's remarkable.
Yes.
But
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
But when you say that's the question I'm asking. When you say more needs to be done, when we have another 2 hours, we'll ask you what that more looks like.
Okay, sir.
But my last question before I let you go: what does a labor force that is resilient to technological, financial, health, or other shocks look like, in your opinion?
It has to reflect that if a hurricane comes, we can be good. If there's a major turn on like what's happening in Europe now with the war and the price of oil goes up, we can be resilient. God forbid another COVID comes, we won't have to be fighting with having to our workforce looking for work, because we'll be able to very, very easily adapt to the requirements what it take to have a good contingency plan, have that backup. Have that backup. If the machine at the Cascarilla production plant in Pompey Bay, Auckland goes down, we should be able to very easily transfer production to Grand Bahama as a backup site. You understand me? Think about these things. Let's think about these things in advance and have a plan. That's how we can make it.
Advanced planning, looking forward.
Exactly.
Imagine the Bahamas where we look forward instead of back, eh?
I just remember I was supposed to be on your show for an hour, and 2 hours have passed very quickly.
Yes, it surely has. I appreciate your patience and thank you for sticking with us, sir. And the department sounds like it is moving in very positive directions. I have some hope for what is on the horizon, and I thank you for your time and your energy.
And I will provide you with a copy of that national policy that I speak about.
All right, great. All right, Robert Farquharson, Director of Labor, thank you for joining us here on the Political. That's going to do it for us this Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your day, sir. And to our audience, thank you and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Those of you who are going to go watch the Oscars, be prepared. Remember, it's a different Oscars this year. So we'll see you all next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.